see the solution on Canvas, right? So you can download this order to cash database solution to take a look at your answers, right? I can quickly go through the solution with you because I think the rest of the queries are not that tricky. So in class, last time I already went through number 1 to number 4, right? So let's take a look at number 5. Number 5 is very intuitive. It's a very simple select and from statement. And the same is true for number 6. And also number 7. So number 7, we do have to include a where condition to make sure that the sales invoices are approved, right? So we have to say this is true. But if you, because we talk about using the timestamp as a filter, right? So here, if you include the review sales time as not now, this is also correct. And for number 8, here we do have to include both of them, right? We need to make sure the Boolean variable is false, and here the review invoice time is not now. So for number 8, if you get an empty result, that's actually correct because there's no invoices that got rejected. And then for number 9, here we only use one filter or condition, that's email sales invoice being not now. And number 10, we already talked about that in class, right? So let's skip that and look at 11. So for 11, this is an intuitive select and from. Number 12, the same thing. And then number 13, for number 13, because this one deals with shredding the remittance, right? So here we need to include this Boolean variable. And for 14, we also need to include the Boolean variable of the scanning in yes or true. For the event log, okay, so if you get a total of 8,882 records, then you should be correct. So 8,882. Yeah, so if you add up everything, it should be this number, right? So today we're going to start with this event log. So to make sure that everyone is on the same page, I uploaded this my event log on Canvas as well. So you can find it also in the module. It's called event log solution. So this one is the file that I generated just to make sure that just in case that some of you didn't get the right answer, right? So then we all will use this file instead. So now I want you to make sure that you can log into your Celonis. So last time I said I want you to take some time, right, to set up your account. So now you should log into this platform, and I believe you should get an email from Celonis. So for example, this is my the email that they sent me where I get this login credential, right? So if you click this login, I think you'll get an email asking for like a 2-factor authentication code, and then you should be able to put in that code and then go through. So let me know if you have any trouble logging to this platform, and then I'll give you a few minutes to set up. Now let's get started. So I have a file included in the Canvas module, right? It's called this build the dashboard instruction. So if you missed any of the steps that I will walk you through soon, you can also use this file as a reference. And also in the final exam, right, you can also bring this with you because this one just can remind you of the steps of how to use Celonis. Okay. So now we are in this interface of this platform. So our first step should be uploading the event log to this platform, right? So that we can start the analysis. So now to do that, let's first go to this data tab, the data option, and then go to the data integration. do this again. So now you should get into this area called data pools. So you may not have all these pools because these are already created by me. So if you want to create a data pool, go to this corner called New Data Pool. It is on the very top. So here we can give it a name. So let's say I want to name it as AIS section 303. You can name it in any way you want. So this is just for my convenience. I'll say AIS section 3, and then I save it. So now you should get into this overview page. Okay, so now to upload the file, we have to go to the panel that's like in this corner and find this button called File Upload. So it might be a little bit difficult to see, but this panel is somewhere in between, right? And then it's called File Uploads. So you click this File Upload, then you will be directed to this area where you can select a file to upload. So here you can either drag and drop a file or just use the old-fashioned way to select the file. So I'm just going to select the file. So the event log solution, the one that I posted on Canvas, I downloaded in my download folder, right? So here I just select this file, then I click open. So now here I am, okay? And before we do anything, I just want to make sure you guys are on the same page as me. All right. So now before we do anything, right, let's go to the 3 button next to the, at the very edge of the screen. Now I want you to click on the 3 dots and select this configure data schema. So this will enable us to adjust the data format before we upload the data to Celonis. So here, make sure that you select this sheet as header row. So this will make the first row be the header or the column name. And make sure you do that. Otherwise, the column will not be named. And then we do next. So here, it's very important that you change the date format of this timestamp into date type. So make sure that you change the format or the data type of this timestamp into date type. You click the 3 dots at the right-hand side of your screen, and then click the data schema. Change the data schema, yeah, and then you'll get there. And first thing you have to check is the sheet as header row, and then click next, and then you will get to this page. And then change this data type of timestamp into date type, okay? And then you can keep the rest as is. And now click save. Okay, so after that, you can click this action blue button. So that just means now we configure the data schema, right? And then we can upload. So now you'll see that the status button is running. That means that we are in the process of uploading the data. Okay, so now my file is uploaded because you can see the status here. You get a green check mark. Okay, so now our data is uploaded, right? I hope yours too. Let's go to the overview. So that just means let's go back to the overview interface. So to find the overview, that's just the button at the very top and then in between. I think it's right below the data pool. So go to the overview. And now we are back to this data pool interface, right? Yeah, so it's already on the cloud. So the next time you log into the platform, everything is there. So you don't have to worry about saving. Yeah. Okay, now let's go to this new data model. And then let's, again, create a name for this data model. So I'm doing AIS section 3 and data model. Then I click save. So in this data model, the purpose of doing the data model is just to let's say, pull the data that we just uploaded to this data model so that later we can do analysis. So now here you will see that this is the file that you just uploaded, right? This event log solution. So just click it, and then you will see that this item will be moved from left to right. That just means that, well, you select that data. And then click next. Okay, so now in the table name, just click this table that you just selected. So here, it's very important that we configure the data by identifying the 3 fundamental elements of an event log. So the 3 elements are case ID, right, activity, and the timestamp. Okay, so now, so here we just have to identify, okay, which column is our case ID? So in this case, it's a transaction ID, right? Transaction ID is our case ID. So now let's click this. Now, next we have to choose the activity name. So here, activity name is for our second column activity, right? Just click this one. And for timestamp, it's a third column right here. So here you will see that Celonis will automatically generate a timestamp, but do not choose them because this one is not the original timestamp. It doesn't contain the original value. So make sure that you choose this original timestamp instead. So now you can keep other things as default. So just make sure that you have the first 3 columns identified as case ID, activity name, and timestamp respectively. So now you can click finish. Okay, so now we tell Celonis what are our case ID, activity, and timestamp. Then we can do our process mining activity. So to do that, we can go to the 3 dots, the more. It's all the way on your left-hand side. It's this button. So go to the more, and then choose process analytics. So now we can start doing the analytics. So you will see that there is a workspace. So now go to the new. And then you will have a list of data model that you already have on this platform. So I want you to scroll down and find the data model that you created. I think mine is named as AIS 03 data model. So if that's also your data model, then just choose this and then connect. So here you can leave the workspace name as whatever is in this edit area. So I will just make no changes and then just say create. Okay, so now I am in this interface where I have the analysis, and then I have this 03 data model workspace, right? Now let's click this new analysis. I know there are a lot of steps, right? That's why I give you the PDF instruction just in case you forget what to do in the exam, right? Okay, so now in the analysis, I will just say, you can also give it any name that you want. I will just name it as AIS 03 analysis. Then create. So now you'll see that your new analysis will be named as AIS 03 analysis. Okay, are you guys with me here? Okay, so now let's just click this new analysis, and then we'll be directed here. And you will see that, okay, the data is not loaded yet. Just click this reload. And then it will take some time to push our data, the event log, into this workspace. And then we can start building our process mining dashboard. So this will also take a little while. Okay, so after the data is loaded, you will be directly directed to this interface where you can add new apps or whatever applications you want to add. So here, let's choose this first one called the new app. So click it. So then you will be directed to like a vacant canvas where you can build different elements to it to build your dashboard. So since we're talking about internal control in this chapter, right? And you might be confused about, okay, why are we doing this? Why do we have to generate event log? And what does process mining has to do with internal control, right? So to address your confusion, let's first take a look at analysis called Variant Explorer. So to do that, let's go to this component at the top of the ribbon, or you can just click this Add Component. Either one works. So after you click that, choose this Variant Explorer. Okay. And then you can close that editable area, and then this might be a little bit small, but you can make it bigger, right, by just enlarging it. Okay. So before I introduce this dashboard to you, I just want to give you a review of what is a variant, right? Okay. So in process mining, a variant is just a sequence of activities, or you can just think of it as a path or a sequence of activities of a transaction that can go from beginning to end. So for example, let's say in most cases, right, the transactions will go from creating an order, and then order gets approved, so on and so forth, and get to payment, right? So let's say that's one path, or you can call it one variant. But in other cases, maybe the transaction will, go through the creation of the order, and then immediately the order is denied, and then that concludes the whole process. So that is also a sequence of activities, right? It's just that there are only two activities involved in this transaction. So that's another variant or another sequence. So in short, a variant is just a sequence of activities. Okay. So I think last time when we talk about process mining, we have a table of this variant analysis, right? So as I said, a variant is just a unique sequence of activities that a transaction can go through. And I remember that I also talk about the concept called a happy path. So a happy path is just a sequence that exactly follows the company policy. So for example, let's say the company policy described using this BPMN chart says, well, all the transactions, if they are legitimate, have to go through create a purchase order, and then the purchase order has to be approved, released, and then we receive goods and invoice and then pay. So if you find any transaction that follows exactly this path will be called a happy path, right? Like everyone is happy in this case. I know it's an interesting name, but a happy path is just the sequence that follows the company policy. Okay, so these are some concepts here in about the process mining. So don't get surprised if I ask you this question: how many transactions are involved in a happy path in the exam? Right, you have to know what is a happy path. Okay, are we good with this review of process mining? Okay, so now let's come back. So with that in mind, right, let's take a look at the variants or the sequences included in our data set. So if we want to explore this dashboard, the first thing that we have to do is to disable this edit mode, because once you are in this edit mode, it makes it difficult to navigate. So first, I want you to click this edit button so that we can exit the edit mode, and then you have more flexibility in, controlling this dashboard. Okay, so now let me first walk you through, like on the right-hand side. So this one is a ranking of the variant by their frequency. So for example, currently we are in variant number 1 or sequence number 1. So by default, this is the most frequent variant. So if you put the cursor next to this bar, you will see some summary statistic about this variant. For example, this kind of variant takes 30% of all variants. And here, the cases 298, this one just means, well, there are, so here cases is equivalent to transactions or orders. So that means 298 transactions are falling into this sequence. They follow this sequence, okay? And here, the last one, duration, median duration just means on average, these transactions take 4 days to go from beginning to end, or to go from purchase order creation to payment, okay? And then, so this is our first variant. If you want to see how many variants are included in our data set, you can just look at the bottom. So here it says, okay, in total, there are 23 variants or 23 different sequences of activities, okay? So now so that's on your right-hand side, right? On the left-hand side, you get a visualization of the sequence of activities that for each variant. So here, if it's too small to see, you can just click the zoom button, right, to make it bigger. So here we can see the sequence of activities that these transactions follow in this variant number 1. So now you may ask, okay, how can we, what's the mechanism of Celonis generating the sequence? This is because we have the timestamp, right? So the sequence just stand for the sequence in terms of time, right? That means creating the digital purchase order happens the first, and next credit gets approved, and so on and so forth, okay? So now I want you to go through the sequence of this variant, and I want you to tell me, can you classify this as a happy path? Okay, remember, the happy path is the path that is the desired sequence of activities per company policy, right? So now if you forgot about our desired sequence, we should go back to the exercise that we did, right? Remember in the last assignment, maybe the last assignment, right? We did this table, right? We identified the activities, and then I asked you to, think about things like actors involved, so on and so forth. But then the way I rank these activities are, in fact, per their desired sequence. For example, the first thing has to be creating a purchase order, right? And after a purchase order is created, we as the company has to review the credit history of the customer and decide whether or not to approve or deny their purchase request, right? And if the purchase order is approved, then we have to create a picking ticket and then pack up the products. And then we have to review the sales invoice, right? So on and so forth. So here I made some adjustments. So in the original document, I think the shredding of the remittance and scanning comes last. But in fact, they should come earlier according to the description of the case study. So you can think of the sequence of activities here as the desired sequence, okay? So with this in mind, do you think the first variant can be considered as completely following the firm policy, or in other words, is it considered a happy path? This variant, actually, the previous activities are all following the firm policy, right? However, this variant doesn't have the last 2 steps of shredding the remittance, and also they do not have shredding remittance and scanning and save remittance, and they went directly to the bank deposit slip, right? So here, I would consider it as not a happy path because they omitted the 2 steps. And it's very, I think we talk about the types of controls, right? So here, shredding the remittance, I think it's more like a preventive control because you want to destroy any sensitive information to prevent like people use it for legitimate reasons, right? So you lack, so the variant number 1 doesn't have this preventive control. And so the first one has the weakness of this issue, right? Okay, so this is our first variant. Any questions here? And okay, now let's look at our second variant. So if you want to see the second variant, just click the second bar. So here your sequence chart will be updated. So let's take a look at this sequence. So I want to ask you, like by looking at the second variant, do you think this variant or this sequence follows the firm policy? If not, what is the weakness? So those are the type of questions that I may ask in the final exam, right? I want you to think about like for each variant, right? Or for some variants, whether it's following the desired path. If not, what's the weakness? And importantly, what kind of control activities does it omit or skip? Like what if someone just, come in with a lot of cash and then they say, hey, just want to pay you, give me the products. Okay, maybe in that case, you don't need credit approval. But let's say in general, right, this is business to business. You want to have some, records from the bank transaction. So in that case, the customer usually have to, pay later. Like then we have the accounts payable. So what's the harm of not reviewing credit history? If we are dealing with the typical customer that has to pay later. So you don't know whether you are selling a large amount of products to customer who cannot pay you back, right? And that will affect your accounts receivable account, right? Especially your estimate of bad debt. And so that's the harm, right? So this is the problem of variant number 2, right? So now I just give you an example of like what to expect, right, in the final exam. So this is the type of question that I might ask, right? I will say, well, what's wrong with this variant? Can you identify any issues? And why is that an issue, right? So this is something that you should think about. So this is our variant number 2. Let's keep looking. Variant number 3. Okay, so is this considered a good path or the path that is fine? She thinks this is a good path because it includes the necessary elements. For example, when order is created and then credit denied, and once the credit is denied, then nothing should happen after that, right? Okay, so that's good, and I agree. So this is I don't know if this can be considered a happy path, but I would say this is a legitimate path, right? Nothing's wrong with it. Now, number 4. So let's zoom in. So can you find any problems with this number 4 variant? Think about the sequence that we talk about, right? Or let's say the record picking of the inventory and create shipping documents happen after the payment, right? Like the payment related activities. And this is weird because from our documentation, right, we should first send out the products to the customer and then wait for the customer to pay. But in this case, it seems that the customer paid first, right? Creative ticket, yeah. So first of all, there is no credit check. And also, what's the first one? Oh, yeah, they didn't record the picking different sequence. Yeah. And also they immediately receive the payment, right? After they receive the purchase order, immediately they get the payment. This is just very unusual for this firm because this firm generally follows the sequence that we talk about, right? So it seems that for this variant number 4, most of the activities are not in the right place, right? So here I would think that, this variant is very risky, right? Because like nothing is in the right place. So this is number 4. Let's take a look at maybe number 7. So number 7. So let's see. Okay, got it. So let's go through this together, right? And then see whether you can find any issues. Create digital purchase order, credit approved, create picking ticket, record picking of the inventory, and then create shipping documents, review the invoice, email the invoice, receive payment, scan, save remittance, shred the remittance, print the bank deposit, and then match. Can you find any issues with this process? Isn't it the same as the document, right, that we showed? Okay. Do you guys agree? This is the same sequence as what we show on our table file, right? So I would say this variant number 7 follows exactly the firm policy, right? So I would consider this as the happy path, this variant. But unfortunately, this only covers 5%. But I think for number 1, there must be a reason. Okay, yeah. Anyway, I think they just skip the 2 steps. If the 2 steps that they skip are the last 2 steps, then I would say, oh, maybe they are still in the process, right? They are not concluded yet, but they skip the 2 processes in between. So I would say only number 7 is considered a happy path here. Let's look at number 9. Yeah, I think the same analysis can go on and on, right? You can always choose a different variant and then think about whether this variant follows the firm policy, right? So this is why process mining is regarded a very useful tool in terms of internal control testing, because here we can directly see if transactions are following the desired sequence of activities, right, including the internal control activities. So let me just elaborate based on this. So for example, we said that these are the activities that the firm should follow, right? And also in this sequence. So we said that, okay, the credit approving or reviewing activity is considered a preventive control. And so it's very important that we do not skip this step, right? And also other control activities include reviewing and approving sales invoice. So here, this activity acts as both it can be either preventive control or detective control, depending on the timing of this activity, right? So this is also very important. It makes sure the accuracy of our revenue account, right? Because when you create, let's say, create a revenue recognition entry, you have to make sure that the amount is accurate, right? And that's performed by reviewing the sales invoice. And then another control activity can be this matching deposit slip and bank receipt. So this one acts as a detective control, right? You are identifying any discrepancies between what the bank tells you about your balance of today versus your record of how much money you deposited in the bank, right? So then any discrepancy can flag some risk. So this is a detective control. So that is to say, if you can identify these control activities in their right order, and then use that as a standard and compare what actually happened from your process mining analysis to that standard, and then you will find discrepancies in the firm's compliance to those internal control activities, right? And then if the firm is omitting some important control activities, for example, the second variant, it doesn't have the credit reviewing activity, which is a very important preventive control, right? So that will raise some red flags, right? And then as a manager or as internal auditors, that's something you want to investigate, right? Why don't we or didn't we review those credit history for those transactions, right? So that's why the process mining in this regard can be used as an internal control testing. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you want to have a overview of the processes, so one thing you can do is that so because here we only show one variant, right? Their sequence. But if you want to show everything on this diagram, you can just go to your right-hand side, and then by enlarging this box to include all the variant. Okay, so now you will see that, okay, on this chart, you're gonna see all kinds of variants scattered together, right? And it looks very messy. So this is a cool chart to take a look at, right? And also in some cases, you will see more variant and the figure will get more complicated. So the more complicated just means that the processes are messier, right? Or there are more in compliance with the predefined sequence of activities, and therefore the less effective of the firm's internal control, right? But if you draw a diagram and say, well, most of the activities are following this happy path, and you only get a few variations, then at a high level, I think the firm did a good job in internal control, right? Or general control. Does that make sense, right? So this is a very interesting tool to learn about. And also on this chart, the process mining, this figure, you can also select, like for example, a point-to-point task to look at the details. So for example, let's say here I can identify this point called, where do I want to go? I want to find credit denial. Let me zoom out. Okay, so let me see this received payment, right? So here received payment, and you'll see that there is a line pointing towards this creation of the create picking ticket. So this means for these activities, for these 148 activities, they have the problem of paying before creating a picking ticket, right? So that's not the right sequence. So then by clicking this line, you will see that, there are this number of cases with this problem, right? So this can also give you an idea of, how many transactions have this problem and the severity of this problem, right? So this is another way to use this process mining chart. All right, I hope that this overview gives you an idea of why are we talking about process mining in this class and why does this relate to internal control, right? It's just a very useful tool for us to see directly whether the transactions are following the controls, and if not, then that will raise some red flag for the management and internal auditors to do further investigation. All right, so this is our first dashboard, right? So besides this this variant explorer, sometimes we also want to build like a summary dashboard. So if you go to my PDF file, a summary dashboard will look like this. So on this dashboard, we want to show some summary metrics, including the number of unique cases or sales or transactions. These three words are usually used interchangeably, okay? And also for number of unique employees. So here I have a typo, it should be employees. Number of unique employees involved in those transactions. And other summary metrics include how many variants are in this data set, right? And from our variant explorer, we already know that there are 23 of them. And the fourth one is called average activities per process. So this one just tells us on average, a transaction can go through how many activities. And then we can also generate metrics like the percentage of transactions that go through, for example, credit denial or credit approval, so and so forth. And here we have a bar chart. So this chart summarizes different activities and then show a frequency of each activity. So then let's just get started and create this the summary dashboard. So let me first go back to Celonis. So before we go to that page, I think just make sure that you open this edit mode so that we are again in the edit mode, okay? But make sure that you, I went back to this non-editable mode because I want to make sure you select all the variants. Otherwise, later when we build the dashboard, it will be based on that particular variant. Okay, so now I want you to go back to this uneditable mode and select all the variants. Okay, so you do that by enlarging that box to include every variant. Okay, so now with that, just click this add button here at the very bottom to add another dashboard. So let's click this add. And now choose again the new add. Okay, so now I think automatically we should be on this edit mode again. So now we just have to compile these summary metrics, right? So now you can just follow me. The first metric that we're gonna do is the number of unique sales or transactions. So to do that, let's go to this component. And then we can scroll down to find this component called number. Okay, choose this number. So here, this is something unique about Celonis. So in Access database, right, if we want to calculate the number of unique transactions, we have to do select distinct count, right? And we have to do that, all that. But Celonis is more of a, let's say, code-free platform where you can utilize some pre-generated code. So I will show you how to do that. So go to this KPI, right? And then there is a function button. It's called a formula editor. So this is where most of the action happens. So go to this formula editor. So we can directly choose this case count. So in Celonis, case is equivalent to transaction. And depending on the scenario that you're talking about, the transaction can be an order, sales order, or purchase order, or other things. But if we're talking about the unique number of transactions, just click this case count. Okay, and after that, you will see that the codes are automatically generated in that editor area. But you don't have to worry about that. You just click down. So you should get 999 unique transaction. Okay, so let me know if you get this the same number. Okay, so if we want to add a title to this number, we can go to this title on the right-hand side. So here you can just say number of unique transactions. And then click done. So that's our first summary metric. Okay, now let's build our second one, which is the number of unique employees, right? Again, let's go to the number, create a number. So this might be a little bit tricky, so I want you to pay attention to this. So let me show you manually how to do that, right? So this is our event log. So if we want to calculate the number of unique employees involved in all these transactions, manually, I will create or calculate a unique number of employee number 1, right? And then calculate a unique number of employee number 2, and then add them up, right? So that's how I will do this exercise manually. So let's see how to do that in Celonis. So again, let's go to this editor, this formula editor. Okay, so in this KPI, first, let's go down to select this employee number 1. That just means let's operate on this employee number 1, and then choose this distinct count. Okay, so if you do this, that completes our first step, which is count a unique number of employee number 1. But that's not all, right? We have to add the unique count of employee number 2. So to do that, let's add this add sign or plus sign after the code. So here we do have to interact with this editor. So here, right, I added this plus sign right after the code that's automatically generated. So I added here. Just add this plus sign after it. Continue doing this thing, but this time choose employee number 2. And then again, distinct count distinct. Okay, so now in this editor area, you will see that you are first component is employee number 1, second component is employee number 2, and then you are adding them up, right? Okay, so now if you click down, you should get this number 79. And you can also give it a name. So let's say number of employees. So I'm just simplifying things, right? You can add longer description. So just make sure that like sometimes if you click other buttons, your editor will change. So just to make sure you didn't, click other buttons to create unnecessary codes there. If you cannot get this number, just create a new number and then go from there. Sometimes it's like if you click wrong buttons, it's difficult to identify the error. So just start from beginning. Okay, so now I'm moving forward. Let's see what's the third metric. Okay, the third metric is just the number of process variants. This is very simple. Again, you create a new number component and then go to the KPI. So here you can directly choose this metric called number of variants. So this one will directly give you the number of variant, and you should get 23, right? That's the same as what's shown on the variant explorer. So here I will just give it the name as number of variants. Let me show you again, right? Number, and then go to edit. And employee number 1, distinct count, and then immediately I add a plus sign at the end of the code. And then I go employee number 2, distinct count, and then that's it, done. So 23 is very simple. Just go to this number of variants. So here, right? So here, number of variants. So then if you get 15, then you must have problem when you load the data. So when you load the data with you remember there is one step that says there are string variables, so on and so forth. So you have to make sure the timestamp is in date time format. So that's what is causing the problem. We had the same mistake in my first session. And so we all end up doing 15. And then I realized that it's that step that went wrong. Okay, so make sure that you may have to reload your data and make sure the format is changed for the timestamp. Yeah. So to see if you really made that mistake, you can go to your variant explorer and see your process number 1. You will see that your process number 1 is completely messed up because it had purchase order as the first activity, and then the next one is, I believe, create a picking ticket, something like that. Yeah, so that's why. Because if you do not set the timestamp as a date time format, then Celonis is going to automatically generate some value which is different from the original value. So that's why you're having the problems there. Yeah. Okay, so do you guys get 23? Okay, so now let's move on. So the next one is to calculate the average activities per case or per transaction. So again, let's go to number. And this is also simple. We just have to choose this average events per case. Okay, so this one, average events per case. So this one will directly give us an average number of activities for each variant. Okay. So here, let me do average activities. So to interpret this number, you can say that for each transaction, on average, it goes through less than 9 activities. Or you can say for on average, a sequence contains less than 9 activities, something like that. Okay. Now, next, our last numeric component is called the ratio of credit denied. So again, let's go to this number and editor. So here, let's choose this metric called ratio of cases flowing through activity. So here, if you click it, you will see that. So for example, because we want to know, the ratio of credit denied, right? But here on the code, there's nothing related to credit denied. This is because it's a very generic code that said ratio of cases going through an activity. But what is that activity? That's something that we have to define. So how do we define that activity of interest? So here, if you can see it on my screen, there is a quotation mark, right? So inside the quotation mark, that's where you put the name of the activity that you are interested in. So for example, if we want to know the ratio of transactions that get rejected in the credit history, then we just have to put credit denied. So this is the exact name as what we have in the event log. So make sure that you have the same spelling or same everything, right? So here, if you look back on my event log, I put credit denied. Make sure you have the same typing. So once you do that, you click done, and then you should get 19%. So that means 19% of the transactions have this activity of credit denied. Okay, so here let's add a title. Say ratio of credit denied. Okay, can you get the same number here? Okay, so now let's move on. So the last component in this dashboard is this bar chart, right? So let's see how to create that. Again, in component. Now this time, let's choose this column chart. It's right over here. Okay, column chart. So we choose this dimension. So first, let's choose the dimension. We go to this add. Are you guys with me? We are in this column chart, and then now we go to add. So this one is adding a dimension. A dimension is just like what thing do you want to show? So we said we want to present a count of activities, right? So then the dimension is just the activity. So here, then you scroll down and go to this activity. Okay, and then you click done. But that's just activity, right? That's just the name of activity. But what if we want to show the number of activities or frequency of the activities? So now let's go to the KPI. So the KPI is just the metric. Okay. Now again, click add. And then here, choose this activities count. Activities count. Okay. So this will calculate the frequency or the number of each activity. Okay, and then click done. So now you will see that the chart is not very beautiful for now, right? So let's make it like more readable. So I want you to scroll down and find the vertical and click the vertical. So this way we can make the activity on the y-axis so that it's easier to see. So make sure that you click this vertical. Okay, so for now, if you enlarge your bar chart, your column chart, you will see that, okay, it's more or less very similar to what we have in the PDF, right? But you can do more with it. So for example, what if we sort the activities by their frequency? So now we go to the sorting and go to add. And then here we can only sort, we can sort by their frequency, right? So that is the activity count. And by default, everything will be ranked in this ascending order. So you should have something like this. And then that's it. You can click done. So that will be the column chart that you create. So here you will see that these activities are ranked in their by their frequency in ascending order, right? And here we see that the most frequent activity is this create digital purchase order. Does that surprise you? Right, it's the first activity, right? And of course, this one should happen the most. And then so on and so forth, you can say, okay, the least frequent activity is credit denied. And that doesn't surprise me either because most of the transaction would go through, right? If this is a, if they're doing the business, I don't know, but this one should be okay. But overall, this is just a summary dashboard. It can't tell you much about internal control. What is really indicative of internal control weakness is really this variant explorer. But this this summary is more of an overview of what's the data look like. So let me ask you something. Let's say okay, I think that's not a good good question, but let's say in total we have about 14 activities, right? And so if we remove, let's say, credit denied and sales invoice denied, then we have 12 activities left. So that is to say, if everything goes through, then we should expect 12 activities. But here, on average, we have less than 9 activities per variant. Does that indicate anything to you? So this means that some transactions do not go through the complete process or complete sequence of the activities, and that might be due to first, maybe some transactions just got denied at very early stage, or some transactions that did get approved did not go through some necessary steps like credit approval or let's say reviewing the invoices, right? So this number can mean many things. But this one doesn't necessarily can target any suspicious transaction. This is just an overview. If you want to target any transaction to investigate, that has to come back to this variant explorer, right? So this is the dashboard, but if you want to add some like make this dashboard more readable, we can also add some like titles, subtitles, things like that. So to do that, you can also go to this add component, but then scroll down and find this text component. Text component underneath the design components. So you click that. So here you can edit anything. So for example, let's create a title called Order to Cash Process Mining Dashboard, Summary Dashboard. So here, this one is giving you a default font. So if you want to, change the font, I think you can just edit like a Word document. So here I want to make it bigger. So let's say 19. And okay, done. So at first it may seem a little bit small, but if you enlarge it, it will show the font that you just set. Okay, so like that. So now you may see a lot of like lines, right? The grid. If you do not want the grid to show up, you can just disable the edit mode, and then you will get a very clean dashboard like this. So these are the two dashboards that I will cover today. So on Wednesday, in the video that I will record, I will talk about the third dashboard, and also I will briefly talk about the mock exam that I will release soon, and also the final exam, including what will be covered in the final exam, something like that. And also for your information, everything that you did here is automatically saved. So that is to say, if you go back home, right, and then you log back in, you will find, this is how you can find your work. So for example, this is the interface that you just log in, right? If you want to find your work, just go to More, Process Analytics, and then in the workspaces, you should be able to find the work that you just did. So for example, for me, I save it as AIS section 03. So you go here, and then you should have your work saved here. So for the homework, right? If you really are very eager to complete the homework as soon as possible, you can just go through this PDF file that I have here, because the third dashboard is actually very easy to create. So you can just follow the instructions and create the third dashboard here. And what do you need to submit? You just need to submit a link to your work. So how do you do the link? So suppose that you already finished everything, right? You have to click this publish button, and then you do publish, and then you will find a link here. And then all you need to submit to Canvas is this link. So we will just grade based on whether or not you did everything correctly. So I think this assignment is like giving you credits, right? Because as long as you follow the instruction, you should be able to get the same number, right? So utilize this chance to get free 25 points, right? And so that's it for today. And if you have any questions, you can ask me or the TA. So that's the text component. So you go to the component and select this text component. Yeah, it might be covered somewhere, so you have to find it. I had that issue before, so let's find out mine. Oh, here, look, it's covered underneath the column chart. So then you bring it up and then figure, and then put other things in place. Can you find yours? Okay, yeah. All right, guys, that's it for today. So next Monday, right, you have two things to do. The first one is this assignment. But make sure that you do the third dashboard, right? You can either follow this instruction or wait until I release the video.